Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Spiritual Journalist. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I'm so excited for today's conversation. We have Morgan Cameron joining us. She's the founder and owner of Enlightened Beauty, and she's someone who has infused her spirituality so deeply into her business, and the impact it's had has been amazing. So we'll talk all about skincare, how she achieves these incredible transformations for her clients by teaching them to literally glow from the inside out and proving that skincare actually starts from the soul. And of course, we're going to be talking so much more about her own spiritual journey and her own experience. So let's get started. I've always been a deeply curious person, talking with anyone who would listen and soaking in as much information as possible. So it's no surprise my love for storytelling led me to a career in journalism. But after nearly a decade working in newsrooms across the West Coast, I realized I wanted to start asking questions you probably wouldn't see on your local news. So I left my job as a morning TV reporter and started The Spiritual Journalist. This isn't just a YouTube channel, podcast, website, or social media page. This is a live conversation where you get to ask questions too, because I'm not the expert. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. My goal is to connect you with people who have profound experiences and inspirational stories to share. And we'll definitely mix a little astrology in too. So if you're like me, you have this insatiable curiosity and you love deep conversations too, well, this is the place for you. Together each week, we'll explore everything from crystals and tarot to mental health and the environment. There are no wrong questions here. My ultimate goal is for you to come away from each episode with a new perspective and an expanded consciousness. This is a channel for the collective. This is a community for the curious. This is The Spiritual Journalist. Hello!
Hi, honey. Sorry, I was like, am I supposed to unmute myself? So
You're just getting hyped during the intro. I love it.
yeah, I'm like, okay, here we go.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. You are someone who I naturally started following on social media, and I know that your business is based around skincare, but you just talking about your own spirituality and your own journey has really inspired me in a lot of ways. So I'm so excited to dive into it with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So I start all of these interviews with a little look at my guest birth chart. I feel like it allows people to get to know you on a deeper level before we dive into your journey, your spiritual awakening. So are you ready to take a look?
Yes, I'm ready.
So I know that,
say?
yes, I know you know your big three, your sun, moon, rising, you're familiar with astrology, and you definitely identify as a Scorpio. And that rings very true for you because not only do you have your sun in Scorpio, but you also have your Venus and your Mercury in Scorpio, as well as Pluto in Scorpio. So that's called a stellium when you have 3 or more planets in one sign, which just means like you're very Scorpio.
Yes, people would agree, I'm sure.
Yes, and I have to tell you from somebody who, we've interacted, we've worked together a little bit. I've gotten services from you, and I have a Scorpio moon. So I love Scorpio energy, but it can be like a little bit intimidating because it's so powerful. Like I just see Scorpios and I'm like, there's so much power and there's so much going on here that sometimes I'm a little bit like, ooh, I do I want to break through the surface? Do I want to know what's going on underneath
Yeah.
there? So you definitely have a level of intensity and passion that comes through, on social media and in person as well. But your rising sign, as you know, is in Gemini. So you probably can talk very easily to people when you first meet them. You make people feel very comfortable during your services. Talking comes easily to you. But also I see this as your social media presence, because you are killing it on social media and have been, for many years. You've created this huge following for people not only interested in skincare, but spirituality as well. So I definitely see that coming out in your Gemini rising. And then your moon is in Taurus in your 12th house. So it's interesting because your sun is slightly opposing your moon, which means you were born on or around a full moon, probably near the full moon. Which definitely brings some abundant vibes. We love that. But it can also bring almost this conflict. Like you put yourself out there and you're kind of intense in this spiritual presence, but there's this part of you internally that just wants to like cozy up on the couch and be with your family and be comfortable and feel nourished.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so how you talk, how you think, how you love, how you relate to money is very Scorpio, but internally you're more of like a Taurus, which has a similar energy, but definitely more grounded internally and more emotional externally. Your midheaven is in Aquarius, so that's kind of your greatest potential for your career. I like to point that out during these interviews because often we're talking about people's careers. And yours being in Aquarius, it's actually on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces. I see this as technology, right? Being like a huge influence for your career. And your Mars being so close to your midheaven is showing that you have a lot of drive and stamina for your work, for your career, for posting on social media, connecting to people through the metaverse or, through technology. Your Jupiter is in Pisces. So I point this out because Jupiter is returning to Pisces at the end of this month, which means over the next year or so, you'll have your Jupiter return. And Jupiter is the planet of abundance, of manifestation. When it's in the sign of Pisces, there's definitely a spiritual activation there, an emotional activation there. But for your Jupiter return, I know you're already like super abundant and manifest and all these things, but I just see this being like another wave of abundance financially or energetically coming for you in the next year or two. So get excited for that. A couple more things. Your Saturn is in Sagittarius, so you probably went through your Saturn return a couple years ago. And I really find this interesting for you with your Saturn being in Sagittarius and in your 6th house, because I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more, but I know that you struggled to conceive for a long time, and that was a big challenge for you in your life. And, being in the 6th house, that has a lot to do with our health and wellness and our routines. And I think it's so beautiful that coming out of your Saturn return, you had this amazing little Sagittarius king.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to talk more about him too, because I've been watching him grow over the past year, and it's so wild to me that he's like this full little human now.
Yeah. Oh, he's the best.
Okay, just a few more things and then we'll dive into your story. So your North Node is in Aries, speaking of important people in your life. So the North Node represents your karmic destiny, your purpose in this lifetime, the lessons you are here to learn. And just from the little bit I know about your story, I know a lot of those lessons have come through your relationship with your husband, who is an Aries, right?
Yes. Very much an Aries.
So, yeah, love that. I love Aries. They're the best. They're such sweethearts. And the one last thing that really stands out to me here is that your Chiron is in your 1st house, really close to your ascendant or your rising sign. And the Chiron is our wound. It's an icy outer body in the solar system. It's known as the wounded healer. So it represents our deepest wounds. But when we can heal those wounds, when we kind of unlock our own healing, it can be the greatest catalyst for us to heal others as well. And the first house rules appearance. It rules the physical self. So any trauma or pain that you had around your own appearance, when you figured out how to find empowerment from that, I see this as you now serving and helping other people to feel more confident in their appearances as well, which is your whole business.
Right.
Yeah. So any other questions you have about your chart?
No, I love that. Like, it's very, I haven't ever had a reading like that where it's, more in depth and kind of understanding, like, things like terminology of like your Saturn return and, and thinking of the last couple of years of my life, like 2018 to like 2000, like, unfortunately, I hate to say it like this, but 2020 was a really good year for me. So, from 2018 to 2020, like those 2 years was like, I think, and I'm in my 30s, I'm 35. I was thinking like, oh yeah, by the time I hit 30, I'm going to have done all my growth and I'm going to be just, glowing and vibing high when I turn 30. It was like, no, let me bring it all the way back down. So, yeah, no, I appreciate that because it's gives me more insight to, to my life and the journey. And I appreciate the journey so much. And so it's nice that it's mapped out. It's like, oh no, this is on purpose,
Totally. And
Yeah.
it's nice that you've already gone through your Saturn return because even what you were talking about really can be the after effects of that Saturn return. Saturn is going to bring the hard lessons, whether we want to learn them or not. And so I love to catch people before they're heading into their Saturn returns, or I'm currently going through mine. And once I realized that, I was able to be like, okay, I know that this is going to activate this part of my chart. How can I lean into it? I mean, I'm literally, changing my entire life right now. So really trying to lean into it. But it's also cool to talk to people after their Saturn returns and see how that played out. And it sounds like you went through some of the hardest experiences in your life, but now you're on the other side of it, and it seems like you are thriving.
Yeah, I'm definitely thriving. That's like the perfect word for it, and I thought so many other times in my life that I was thriving. But coming through that with these last 2 years, I mean, I was in like the lowest, like darkest place, like, not anything where like my thoughts were taking over, like nothing like that, but just like, it was really about, I think for me, and a lot of that ancestral trauma and knowing like I really had to deal with it and I really had to stop it. Because, if we did all the lineage of women, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, all in that same side, it is like messy and dirty and like just so it was like, okay, this is what I'm here for,
I relate completely. And it's such a powerful realization when you understand that by healing yourself, you're also healing your mother and your grandmother and your great-grandmother and all these generations that weren't able to do it for themselves. And I just have to point out before we stop looking at your chart here, and I'm sure throughout this I'll be like, oh, that's this part of your chart,
Awesome.
as we're talking. But your moon is in your 12th house, and the 12th house is the house of spirituality. It's kind of that house where the veil is really thin. If you look at the astrology wheel, like our life, typically, the first house is ruled by Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, the baby of the zodiac, and the last house is ruled by Pisces, which has the most wisdom and is the most spiritual sign. So with your moon in the 12th house, not only do you crave comfort and nourishment and have that grounded energy, but also you probably feel really nurtured by your spiritual practices, by your connection to spirit, to God, to the universe, you know, whatever you want to call it. And leaning into that probably gives you a level of security and comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. That is where I go. That is definitely how my son sees me right now is how I see my spiritual practice, just, yeah, like mother.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yes. And the moon, too, is the divine feminine energy. So I love that you just said that. Your spiritual practice is like a mother to you. And your moon, your mother energy is in that spiritual 12th house.
Yeah.
But let's talk. I want to start from the beginning with you because, like I said, Scorpio energy is very mysterious to me, and you are like a book I want to crack open and just like read the whole thing. So, talk to me about how you came up with the concept of Enlightened Beauty.
Yeah, so when I was 19 years old, I was going to college, and I was in the lab, and I looked up how to be an esthetician. And like my experience with estheticians in the past was like I'd go get my eyebrows waxed, a couple times when I was 16 or whatever. But after I looked up how to be an esthetician, for whatever reason, right, we can call that just like divinity. I don't really know what that was. I started doing makeup for a bunch of different lines. And I started to understand, these young girls were coming to me to get their makeup done. They had prom, they had this, and it really, that was my first like intro to looking at the skin and understanding that, these girls are trying to feel really good, and I could only make my makeup look as nice as the canvas was, so that was definitely the first, like, kind of the seeds are being planted. But of course, I personally haven't had my own like skin journey where I've had really intense skin issues that I had to correct. But I also have a lot of empathy. So even though I haven't been through something, I am one of those people who can very easily like sit and like put myself in somebody else's shoes and almost go through those feelings. Probably not as intensely, of course, because I'm not actually living it, but I can feel it as much as I can. And so, and throughout like my early 20s, I had some, really great jobs, and I was in banking for a lot of years. And then I was recruited by one of our VIP customers, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, I'm going to make more money, and this is what it is to grow. And then I was stuck in an office, and I was like, oh my, no, this is not me. So I lasted 6 months in that job, which isn't my, usually when I'm in a job, I'm in a job for a long time. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I've only been here for 6 months. How is that going to look? Whatever, right? That's just silly thoughts. But, and then my husband at the time, who was actually my boyfriend, he was like, why don't you just go, just go to school to be an esthetician? Because I had already, at that point I was 26, 27, and it had lingered, and I thought about it, and I've been talking to people about it. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I just knew that it seemed like something I wanted to do. So I was able to go to school full time, and it's about like a 6 to 8 month program if you go full time. And then I got my license in 2013, January of 2013. And then, I was working for other people and other spas and doing other things for probably about 2.5 years. And then I was living in Southern California. We finally moved back to Sacramento in 2016. And one of my girlfriends that I went to school with, she had this little solo salon downtown Sacramento. And she told me that she was moving to Oregon, and if I wanted to take a look and take over. And I walked into this, it was like 113 square feet. It was like the tiniest little space. But I walked in, and it was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I can do this. And I took over some of her clients. But of course, when you create a relationship with a esthetician, it's kind of hard to keep those clients because, I was different than Melissa. Melissa and I are very different. So yeah, I opened Enlightened Beauty, and then I really used, my empathy and my connection with people to build my business, not only, when my clients come in, but also on social media. And so I've had Enlightened Beauty since 2016.
Already, I'm like thinking of your chart as you're telling me this story, and I'm like, okay, I have to tell
Yeah.
you. I
Yeah.
love that your husband was the one who kind of like nudged you in that direction because,
Oh,
again,
yeah.
that's like almost like your compass, your north node, him being like, no, this is the direction you're supposed to go. And
Yes.
then talking about using empathy in your business. So, like we talked about your Jupiter in Pisces, bringing you abundance. And this is
Mm-hmm.
in your 10th house, your house of career. But Pisces is that really empathetic, sensitive, emotional energy. So
Mm-hmm.
you being able to tap into that empathy, I think is, just from sitting on your or laying on your table, getting services from you, seeing how you interact with people, I think is a huge part of your success because it seems like your approach isn't just, okay, you're going to come in for a facial, we're going to clear out your pores or whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
so much deeper than that. So,
Mm-hmm.
was that always the goal when you thought of this name, Enlightened Beauty, or did that sort of develop organically?
Yes. So what's interesting about my name is that I actually didn't even come up with it myself. I was in school and we were doing, and this again, this was in 2012. So 2012, social media was a thing, but it really wasn't a thing. It was like just kind of,
Yeah,
yeah,
Instagram was just starting. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So we were like, okay, we're going to create an Instagram. And I am, or not so much right now, but back then I was a very huge yogi. I used to make the girls in class like do some yoga positions with me. I was also training for the CIM, which is the California International Marathon, and I did that about 3 times. And so the girls were really seeing like this part of me. So when I say the girls, I'm talking about when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like 13 or to 20 of us. And so I was, I took beauty school very seriously. Again, I was 26, 27. I was, just very much like in this like health focused time and this change. And so one of the girls came up with the name herself. She was like, you should name your business Enlightened Beauty. And I was like, yes. Like it just like I didn't think of it, she thought of it, and if I saw her to this day, I'm sure she remembers it. Maybe she doesn't, I don't know. But that was very much like when she said that to me, I was like, ooh, like, and I think it's even more powerful that somebody else named it for me because we don't see, well, some people, I personally don't see necessarily the power that I have all the time. Sometimes like there'll be certain things that happen and I'm just like, ooh, yeah, ooh, like I can feel it. But to have somebody else give me the name, I think it really like that is the perception. Like that is what people are taking from, the energy I'm putting out. So Enlightened Beauty, when I started it, in my sola, I kind of like had this moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to run out of things to post. Like, I'm just going to keep posting skin and this skincare thing. And like, and it was like I'll still remember the day. It was like this light bulb that went off. And I was like, why am I not posting like all this other cool shit that I do? Or like how, like, how it like just kind of ties in, whether that is like eating well, as I eat like a predominantly like vegan diet, or, why don't I talk about exercise, or, the fact that I do yoga all the time and like how that's changed my life, or like the things that I've been through like as a child. Because, when people are coming in and they're having a lot of issues with their skin, I was like, this is all like, and I know it's all combined. So that it was like Enlightened Beauty for maybe the first like 3 months, I was trying to figure it out. And then come like December of 2016, I was like, oh, okay. like this is what it is. And then it kind of morphed into what it is now.
Yeah, this great blend of like spirituality and skincare and motivation, and it's a whole brand.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
I'm really curious what your health journey has looked like because I know you share a little bit about that. And of course, looking at your chart, you have a ton of planets in your sixth house of health and wellness. So have you always been really health focused, or was that another journey that you kind of had to walk through to be able to share?
Yeah. I mean, so my like, I'm just for the sake of being real authentic, my mother had a lot of like mental health issues because of her mom. And her mom, was, we'll just say, wretched, right, for the type of mothering that she needed. And so it's interesting, like, to kind of think about my mom and how it's kind of taken over, like, the just kind of, again, that ancestral trauma, trying to stop that. And so, when I started living with my dad at one point, and I really wasn't focused on health, and I had no idea. We ate whatever, but it was a healthy household though. And then at one point, like in my early 20s, I was experimenting with like that strict calorie. It was like 1,200 calories, and then I got really, really thin for my height. And I was like, okay, like that's not working. And so then I started doing some other things that wasn't working. So when I was 23, I found Bikram yoga, and we'll just call it hot yoga now because of the whole story, right? But I found hot yoga, and it was specifically that series, and I just completely like dove in, and I was even like, I was a bridesmaid in one of my best friend's weddings, and she was like, Morgan, like, do you even want to be in my wedding anymore? Like, you just completely, like, because when I get focused on something, I can't. And especially at that time, it was really important for me to do that because I had two choices in life. I could have gone down this obsessive path, or I could have gone down this obsessive path,
In true
and one would
Scorpio
have led me
fashion.
here, and yeah, and one would have led me, in on a dark path. And so I did like 60-day challenges, and I would get up at 6:30 and go, and then I would go again at 6:30 at night. I was going twice a day. And that was like the first intro to, being vegan and understanding like meditation. And I would do all the workshops that they had. And like a woman came in talking about how she reversed stage 4 cancers with an alkaline diet. So that was like the intro. And then since I've been 23, it was like I went through IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is like an online like health coaching course. And which really dives in, and not to just like vegan diet, of course, but like having your work and your spiritual practice and eating well and exercise and all that stuff. And so since that yoga, I have just immersed myself in the knowledge of what we're putting in our bodies now, stress, all of that. So it's really powerful because I use all of that in Enlightened Beauty every time a client comes in.
Definitely. I know you touched on your mom a little bit, and there's something you shared recently on your Instagram. Speaking of showing up authentically, you are someone who, I'm sure you don't share everything, but I felt really connected to you the first time you were just like, hey, I just went through this really shitty season of my life, and this is what happened. And like, it almost gave me permission to be like, oh, why am I not sharing my own struggles, not for the sake of, woe is me, my life sucks, but like, if you're going through this too, it's okay, and there's a way out of it. So first of all, I just think it's amazing that you're so open and authentic on social media. But the post you shared just a couple days ago about your mom actually really took me aback because that's something I didn't know about you. So can you just kind of share the impact your relationship with your mom has had on you as a human? Because I know it's been really huge.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes on social media and things that I say, it might come off like I'm, bitter or angry or, um, or have like some negative feelings about my mom. And I used to, it used to be really bad. And that's why I said, I had these like two paths, I could have gone down this path or that path. But one thing that I know, luckily, I know that my mother loved me more than anything. And I think, everyone's issues stem from childhood traumas. Um, but I never questioned how she felt about me. She just had a really intense upbringing, which made her turn to things that had to numb her feelings and emotions because she probably felt as deeply as I do about things, or maybe even deeper, right? And so, um, someone that I go to all the time, her name is Dr. Rhonda, who I love so much, but the example that she used is like, you can have a 25-pound child or you can have a 5-pound child, which means the 25-pounder needs 25 pounds of love and the 5-pounder doesn't. And it just depends. And sometimes, somebody might have, a really, doting mom and it's like they didn't need that. Or somebody really needed the doting mom and they didn't need that. It's like a perfect example when you have two children and you mother them the same and one turns out one way and the other turns out another way. There's a lot of other aspects going on, but I think being loved, supported, nurtured is like the foundation. So now that I'm older and I understand my mom's struggle, I love and appreciate her so much because she loved me unconditionally. And that is why I'm able to do that for my son. Woo! So, the struggle with my mom is very powerful and I've learned so much and I'm so grateful for the journey because I'm just a better person. I'm just a better, more layered, like deep thinker and feeler because of it. And my son is the one that's really benefiting from it the most. Like I almost feel like I'm here to like be like the, like laying the foundation and kind of being the middleman for like the healing and then like the not healing. Like you get to just go shine. You don't have to go through all the shit and try to unpack it all and then repack it. And, he doesn't have to do that. So, growing up with a mother who was an addict was really difficult, really, really difficult. And I was the mother in a lot of situations, or most of them. But I do like appreciate and love her unconditionally for the love that I felt from her, because that's just, she was able to love me that way because that was the kind of love that she needed from her mom that she didn't get. And that's like what I understand now about her journey, that, I could sit here like I used to and say, well, why didn't you just get off drugs for me? Why wasn't I like the reason why you could just snap out of it? It's like, because it was just so deep, it was so deep and it's so much, takes so much more than just a child, right? A child doesn't heal you at all. You have to do the work first.
Right. And I'm guessing you have always been a very deeply feeling soul, even as a child. Like I know personally, when I understood I had a Scorpio moon, because I'm very Virgo, I'm very put together and on it and perfectionist. And then understanding I had a Scorpio moon really gave me permission and helped me understand, because I don't know if you've heard like that children tend to express their moon signs a little bit more until about age 5. That's like a theory. And I had a lot of intense emotions and anger as an early child. And so I bring that up because you said I had to be the mother in a lot of situations, and I 100% relate to that on so many levels. But you probably had this like innate wisdom and part of you that always knew like no, I'm made for more than this. Like, what is this
Mm-hmm.
bullshit I got brought into this life with, you know? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where that, it sounds like that resentment came from.
Yeah.
But you also said something that I think is so beautiful, that now you are grateful for the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you probably a year or two ago share a video of you spreading your mother's ashes, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. Was that kind of a pinnacle moment where you were able to release and turn towards that more grateful mindset and
Mm-hmm.
more looking at it in hindsight rather than being in it still?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what's interesting is that in the past, anytime we would talk about my mom, or there were ashes, or anything, it would just be like immediate tears, immediate breakdown, unable to control the emotion at all. And I'm an emotional person, so I'm going to go through like the wave of feeling it, and then like that's just who I am. But first thing I want to say is like I'm just thinking like, wow, like I really do feel um, healed in a way, like, very healed by being able to say like these really like deep things without being triggered by emotion, because I think it has its place now. Like I framed it a certain way and it has its place. And so to answer your question though about the ashes, that was also a time where my husband and I were trying to get back together, and I was very focused on like this thing. It was like I knew we were supposed to get back together. I knew we were going to have King. I just knew all these things. And so spreading my mother's ashes was a very profound moment, I think, because we were together, but we were going through so much in that moment that I was kind of using it as like a way to like connect with my husband again. um and I think it worked. It did. We're together. But it definitely, because that was also, my granddad had passed away, and so what he wanted is to spread her ashes and his ashes together, so it was kind of a group thing. And yeah, it was a very it was a very powerful, like profound moment to just kind of like let it all go. And right after he passed away like October 19th of 2019. And then on that cusp of Scorpio season, it was the 23rd. I'd smoked a little bit of weed, but I had a whole like moment of like, after he passed away, like I felt them with me. And I've smoked weed periodically. It's not like I have these things. It was really them. Like, and I could really feel them. And I call them cosmic downloads, where like it was like all of this pain and suffering that I was going through that I couldn't really explain. I mean, I didn't understand why and how to get out of it. It was like after that night, few days after my granddad passed, it was like, okay, this is what you have to do. You have to this. And so like I woke up that next morning and I had so much clarity, and I like knew things as if like they were both standing in front of me telling me these things. And so that was probably the most profound moment that I had. And that was right before I spread my mom's ashes.
Beautiful.
So,
I love that. And I swear we're going to talk about skincare eventually, but you are such an
yeah.
interesting person to me. And I do want to talk about you and your husband, because you sharing that, I've talked about this actually on a solo episode I recorded a few weeks ago about my own separation from my partner. And,
Mm-hmm.
I shared that with you a little bit
Mm-hmm.
when I came to see you, but seeing someone who is successful and spiritual and beautiful and has her shit together talk about like, yeah, my relationship like kind of fell apart for a second
Mm-hmm.
there, and also acknowledging your shit, right? And that like
Mm-hmm.
you, because I think so often, and this is a realization that I have had coming out of my own conflict with my partner and separation from my partner, and having that same feeling of like, but I know deeply that we are supposed to be together and I don't know why this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of times when in, heterosexual relationships especially, I feel like there's this conception that women are just kind of allowed to be the mess and like freak out and blow up and have all the emotions, and that's just because we're women, and men are just supposed to kind of like deal with it. And when I heard you talk about like, yeah, I really played into that, I was like, oh, I need to acknowledge how I am playing into my
Mhm.
own conflict, the situation that I am dealing with right now. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for like being so honest about that, and just ask you about how that all played out and what you learned from it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really easy for us to always point the finger at somebody else, right? Self reflection, self analysis, right? It's the hardest thing to do because we don't think, or we don't want to think, or however that kind of plays out psychologically, right, in our minds, that like, well, it's them, it's them, it's them, it's them. And it's like, that's the easy way out. Like, you can do that, right? But it's going to be the same thing with the next person, or it's going to be the same thing with your coworker, or it's just going to be the same thing over and over again. So, going back to, therapy, and having someone like really kind of help me understand like maybe my patterns that you're not able to see, right? Because you're stuck in the loop, you're stuck in the pattern. So doing that was really, really perfect, for me to get my mind like out of that. Of course, that doesn't mean that he then is going to just be this miraculous changed person, right? Once I do the work, right? It still takes two people. But if you have somebody who's willing to do the work and go to therapy with you and understand, like my husband and I both have very like high capacity, right? It's very high capacity in understanding what's happening, but I'm up here over here and he's up here over here. So we're not over here together, right? We're just over here. So that, for me, that has been the biggest thing for me that I had to learn and understand in bringing my relationship back together, is that like, I can keep pointing the finger, but he is wonderful and grand in his own way. So yeah, I mean, my husband and I, we've been together since 2012. We got married in 2016. And this last October, we had been together for 9 years. And so, almost a decade with somebody, and, for me, that was, 25 to 35. That's a lot of growth for me, a lot of different changes going on, a lot of like things I had to heal. And, we definitely, we broke it. I spent a lot of time expressing, hey, like these are some things that I need in our relationship in order to feel really good and really balanced. And he has his own traumas, and he spent a lot of time going, well, I don't want to do that. So then it was just this mess over and over again, this mess. And then, I made some really bad decisions, and I did a lot of things that you shouldn't do when you're in a relationship. But I had to. Like, when I think about it now, it's like I had to do it because, one, it was something that needed to be done so that way he could understand like the depth of what it was that I was saying. And then for me, that was the start of healing the patterns of the traumas in the past. So, when people go through really big, horrible things, and of course, like, I always say this, which I think is true, like Disney really just like fucked everybody up with all these fairy tales.
Yeah.
It's
right,
just
the
like,
man
there's
just
no such
swoops
thing as a
in,
fairy
it's so
tale.
easy. Yeah.
It's like, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, we just think like, oh my gosh, like there's this, you can never get over that. This is just too much. And it's like, well, we have two people that have grand capacity, and each person can take accountability in their actions on both sides. Even if what you did was way worse than what he did. Well, yeah, but if you unravel it and understand like why it happened and where it was coming from, and how much time and effort and how many years I put in. And, you know, I was taking this man on intimacy retreats and shit. Like, it wasn't for a lack of trying, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't for a lack of trying. It was like I was trying so hard, you know, and my actions were never out of, like, sexual desire. They were just out of, like, emotional desire, you know? And so it's hard to, like, explain that to someone when there's, like, that sexual component, because it's just like, well, what, you know, it's hard for somebody to understand that until they finally do. And understand, like, how, you know, it's like, it's so weird. Like, you know, when you just said, or like, you know, repeating what I said, when you just know you're supposed to be with somebody, like, I just knew that I know that I'm supposed to be with him, even though it's so hard. You know, it's so hard. Like, emotionally, it's so hard. Because I gotta unpack my own shit, and then as women, we have to help them unpack their own shit, because they're not gonna, you know, maybe some men out there, not all men, but most men are not gonna do it, you know. And I feel like there's a new generation of maybe men who are, you know, aware of it and healing themselves, or, you know, so that's really powerful. But this man in particular in this time was not gonna do it.
But just proof that you two were supposed to come together, you know. And I feel like in my own relationship, you know, we're finally getting to the point where we are kind of in almost that hindsight stage of like, oh, that's why all that shit had to happen. And like, look at how both of us have grown. And actually at the beginning of this year, I saw a psychic, and she told me, kind of going off of what you're saying, that it's usually the divine feminine that rises before the masculine. And it's funny that you did this, because this is literally what she did with her hands. She's like, I see you're here and he's here, and he's going to come up to meet you, and then you're going to keep going, and then he's going to come up to meet you, and that's how it's going to go. And it gave me a lot more patience, because I was like, okay, I just have to, like, lead the way through my feminine energy, through my own growth, and be the example. And, you know, he will benefit from that energy too. And it's totally happened. And it doesn't surprise me anymore, but it just makes me feel so good. Like, wow, we really are supposed to be together for the purpose of mutual growth. But mutual growth is really fucking painful a lot of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Like, you know, and that's like, one thing, again, going back to my therapist, who I love so much.
I need to meet her. I've been dying.
Huh?
I've been dying to meet her. I hear you talk about her, and I think she has to be incredible.
My vision board.
Yes.
Yeah, so that would be a good time to meet her. But she's like, you know, having a one-on-one is like everything. You know, you're like, having a one-on-one is so much better than just meeting her at the vision board thing. But, you know, she always says, you know, Morgan, you're the pilot. And this is all women. Like, women are the pilot and men are the co-pilot. And if you see, like, in the animal kingdom, every single animal kingdom, the woman is the one who leads the way. And the men are just there to just protect the babies and go out and get the food. But the women are the one that they are the, you know, the keeper of the house. And and that is, you know, my husband, since having my son, not only have we done our work too, but he's, you know, I would never say this in most relationships, but my son has brought us together. You know, I would don't ever have a child to, not you, I'm just saying people, don't have a child to bring you together. No. But if you have two people who are doing the work, and Ian is very much like, okay, well, babe, what are we going to do? You know, before he would be like, this is what we're doing. You know, and that's why we had so much, because I am very, like, you can't tell me what to do. You can't boss me around. You can't, you know? And, and
he probably loves to boss you around.
Huh?
He probably loves to, like, boss you around and be in charge as an Aries a little bit.
Yeah, he does. He's just like, oh, okay. You know, and then sometimes I think the most beautiful part about, like, being, you know, a strong, smart woman, like, you let him sometimes, right?
Yes.
You just let him. Because it's like, well, this is not like a fight that I need to fight, and it's not that big of a deal. And if you feel like your chest is big and like fucking a man by doing that, then just do it. You know, it's fine.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, we are going to talk about skincare, I swear. But
Yeah.
as we've talked about your whole journey, we've talked about your childhood, we've talked about how you started Enlightened Beauty, your journey with your husband. I have to ask you how motherhood is treating you. It looks
Yeah.
so beautiful on you, and I know this is something you prayed for and manifested and tried for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have this beautiful baby who's just full of life. How does that
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah. I mean, motherhood, ever since I was really young, I've always said, I need to be a mom. Like, Enlightened Beauty is wonderful and I love my business, and I'm somebody who like needs to have both. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a stay-at-home type of individual, um, which is also beautiful. But for me, I needed to have something else. But motherhood was the most important thing, right? I would be a stay-at-home mom if that was my only option. And I, going back to, healing the trauma and being pregnant and having a child that seemed like I wasn't ever going to have, there's something really beautiful about the way that he is and how he acts and his personality. And I take a lot of pride in that. And he is who he is because of the environment he's in. And then the environment he was in when he was in utero, it was like, that was so, like, I was just, like, so happy. And like, and if we think that we're all energy and, it's like those thoughts and those feelings. And like when I would feel him move and just all of it, he was just so perfect and so divine the whole time. And so he just is that way. He just is, because that's the only energy that he's been kind of having pumped through his cells as he was being created. So motherhood is everything and more. And what's funny is I really thought so many years, I was like, oh, I want to have a daughter. I want to have a girl. I'm going to, redo this mother-daughter relationship, and it's going to be this, and I'm going to make it like that. And, at one point I had this thought, like, when I first started IVF, it was like, well, if I can't have a little girl, then why would I have a child? Right? That's that unhealed mother wound that was so intense. And as time went on, it was like, okay, yeah, I definitely want, I want a child. It doesn't matter. But then when I got pregnant, because we put 2 embryos in, one boy and one girl, and they came in and they were like, well, the girl embryo is looking really good and it's real strong, and we didn't have to do this and we didn't have to do that, blah, blah, blah. But the boy embryo, he's this and that. And so we went in and there was one heartbeat, and I was like, well, it's definitely the girl, because I wanted a girl for so long. Like, I manifested this, and the girl was doing better. So it's a girl. Okay. But then after, like, when I felt like it was a girl, I was like, oh. It's so funny. Like, I was like, wait a minute. Like, if I had a little boy, all of these other things, and I have twin brothers that are 11 years younger than me. And I was like, but I'm such a boy mom. Like, I'm such a boy mom. And then when we popped that little confetti and it was blue, it was like, it took me 30 seconds. And I was like, of course I'm supposed to have a little boy.
Yeah.
It's like women and men can go through very similar things as a child, but men are so much more sensitive, and they break easier, and they're more like I said, they're more sensitive, and the society is not good to them, emotionally. And so I was like, I am blessed. Like, I get to create a really strong, like, man, like a beautiful man, and now I'm like, I only want boys, I'm like, oh,
I love that.
Stop that. But
and he's going to have flawless skin, right? For a man too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about skin, because that is your expertise. I know that your business is so much deeper than just aesthetics, but I'm just gonna like straight up pull up your Instagram, because these are transformations that I feel like people really need to see to believe. So I'm just gonna like start pulling them up. But I want you to talk about your approach to skincare because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the typical go in, get a facial, and even the products you use are a lot different than typical, Cetaphil, what the normal dermatologist tells you to go
Right.
buy.
Yeah. So, recently I'm working on 3 clients right now who are very similar to the client that you just pulled up, Angie, with the very like deep cystic acne. And like that is like where like I thrive. Like that is,
Hmm.
I mean, of course, like I want to help everyone with skin issues, don't get me wrong. But the deep inflammatory, cystic, red, like we'll call it like angry acne. Like this is like what I live for because not only do I get to, talk to my client about the basics as far as using proper skincare and using that self-care piece, to change your skin. It's like I get to be like a healer, and like that is like what I thrive on. And talking to them about deep emotional trauma or stress. Like one of my clients, we've been working on her for years, and I can't, and there's just nothing I can do, right? And I told her, I was like, I can't out peel, or we can't cleanse this away. Like this is such a, she told me, I was heading to go visit my fiance's family on to Arizona, and the whole time on the plane, I was, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to be around the family for 5 days. I'm gonna need my space, and oh my gosh, like I just, why am I doing this? And and then she's like, and then I got there, and everything was fine, and I had a great time, and I was like, so you put yourself through it because your body doesn't know the difference, right? You
Hmm.
literally put yourself through a traumatic 5 days that you didn't even go through. And so like that's just an example, of the specific client and certain things that she is going through. And so every time I talk to her, it's like a little piece of information, and something's like, just okay, oh yeah. And like this last time I saw her, she just totally broke down and started crying. It was like, I know, I just need help to try to, and so like, and I've given her all the tools before, and so we just go through it again, and we just, and at some point it will hit. At some point, she's going to go, ah, yes. But to
Hmm.
be like that person who is like a real healer, like it's really, like it's real. And I'm just using skin as like the vessel to touch people. It could have been anything.
It's so true. And I love, you know this very well. Scorpio is the alchemist of the zodiac. You literally create these physical transformations. But, I am someone who I haven't struggled with cystic acne, but I struggled with bad acne for several years in
Mm-hmm.
college. And now looking back, I'm like, okay, everything I was eating, how I was treating my body, all the stress I was putting myself through,
Right.
definitely played a huge, huge, huge factor, if not created the whole thing.
Right.
But it's, I've been there where you don't want to leave your house or you can't put enough makeup on to cover it up. Or even I look back at certain pictures and it's
Mm-hmm.
not even that I'm like, oh, I look terrible, but I can see the unhappiness all over my face and all over my
Right.
body, right? Like how I
Right.
was carrying weight, how I was puffy and my skin. And
Yeah.
so, you're healing so much more than just the skin
Mm-hmm.
by creating these transformations. And like you were talking about that client, how how much do you think our emotional state and the stress and the trauma we're going through affects our skin, the largest organ on our body?
Yeah, I mean, like if I had to break it down, like in a percentage, I mean, at least 50%. Maybe I'm being modest. It's probably way more than that. Maybe some certain skin conditions where, it's due to like Accutane, and then we're using something topically, and then we take antibiotics, right? But then a lot of that too is still internal, right? With the antibiotics killing all this good and bad bacteria. Then you don't have a alkaline diet and you eat a lot of acidic foods, and then it's a perfect breeding ground for that fire to start and where the inflammation can start. And then you can't really get out of it because you don't really know what the cause is, and then you feel depressed, and then you want to eat something that makes you feel better, like a grilled cheese sandwich, right? Or, you know, something like that. So, I think our emotions, I mean, you see it a lot in like, you know, people who have eczema or psoriasis or, you know, stress rashes, which I get sometimes. I used to get them a lot more years ago. It's like that is all internal and it's autoimmune and it's, you know, so it's huge. It is huge. Yeah. So, I mean, taking care of yourself and your body and eating the right foods and self-talk and exercise and all of these things, like it's very, very important. And I couldn't really get these transformations if my clients didn't trust in what I was saying and doing this other piece to it. You know, because I don't treat with pills or, you know, Accutane or things like that. You know, we do topical things and skincare, take care of your skin, but everything else is coming like from up here.
Totally. And I know you ask those questions. You ask about what people are eating, what's going on in their lives that might be causing severe breakouts or inflammation. But I have to tell you, you introduced me to Lyra, and I'm obsessed. I have never had clearer skin in my life,
Amazing.
and I've never had a more gentle routine either. So when
Yeah.
did you start? I know you sell Lyra products in your shop and you use them in all of your services. When did you discover them and how did that change? Did you train with them or have you always used them?
Yeah. So, I mean, so luckily when I was in school at Federico, one of my teachers was actually an esthetician, and I think she only taught that 1 year. And she like really noticed that I was taking beauty school really seriously. And so she took me under her wing and was like, okay, you know, and she was really like, I was able to come to her with all these questions and she introduced the whole class to Lyra. And I think part of it was that I really trusted her and her guidance with me. So then I really trusted the product, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that I could get the same results with a different line? Sure, maybe. You know, like I'm not saying absolutely not. I think there's a lot of amazing, great lines out there. But I've been using Lyra Clinical since 2013. I've seen them go through all of their changes. I've seen the bottles change. I've seen the ingredients change. You know, I've done like so many classes. And I know so much about it and I know how it works and I know how to treat the skin and I believe in the product. So if I believe in it wholeheartedly and it's impossible for me to sell you something that I don't believe will work for you, then it's going to work if you trust me. You know, it's like that still like that mental piece.
Well, and I've seen you, write on Instagram that the power of belief is really fueling these
Mm-hmm.
transformations. You
Mm-hmm.
believe you can give someone clear skin. You
Mm-hmm.
believe in their ability to heal themselves. How important do you think that is in achieving these transformations? Because not all estheticians can get these results.
Yeah. You can't fake it, right? I can't fake the energy behind what I'm saying, you know? Like, even if you would classify yourself as not a very intuitive person, you're going to know. Whether you felt something or you didn't feel something or, you know, you kind of believe it, you kind of don't. It's like, I can't fake what I'm saying. And so my clients, I'm really excited. I have a few that I'm working on that are just going to be amazing. You know, they are like, Morgan, like my skin is changing, you know, and when I come to you, it doesn't feel like you're trying to sell me product or, you know, I mean, I am selling product, of course, but I'm not like, that's not the goal, right? I'm not like, oh, I got a quota I got to meet. I got to do this. I got to do that. It's like, I believe that the universe is infinite and abundance will come. And every client that I have in here is special and valued. And so I'm going to sell you what you need. And that's the energy behind it, is that you came to me, you need help with your skin. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to sell you. And it's just going to happen because I believe what I'm saying. And then you just have to believe what I'm saying because I believe it. Like
You're
without you
like
even knowing.
manifesting it. Yeah.
Yeah, like you don't even know that it's like that it's really happening to you because and sometimes I don't really even know that it's happening because it just happens in the background. It just is, and it is how I feel, and it is how I think, and it's what I believe. So, there's I I can't not change somebody's skin, you know?
I love it. And I love how, I know these before and afters have really gained so much of your following on social media, but I do feel like you've also created this community. Like every time I see one of these pictures when I open Instagram, like I'm rooting for that person. I'm rooting for that
Yes.
girl. And then I'm so happy and excited for her because I might not have had as severe of acne as she came to you with, but I know that feeling of
Yeah.
how debilitating it can be when you're like literally wearing your trauma on your skin, you're wearing
Mm-hmm.
your pain on your
Mm-hmm.
skin, whatever
Mm-hmm.
is going on internally, you like can't hide it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I love that you've
Mm-hmm.
created such a beautiful community. And I'll bring up this picture of Enlightened Beauty. You have an amazing shop there as well. Even the mural you are sitting in front of right now, painted by this incredible female artist.
Mm-hmm.
How important was it for you to create an entire environment? Because you're opening up people to spirituality just because they see those little transformations, then they go into your page and get so much more than skincare. So why did you
Mm-hmm.
want to create this entire brand and community and shop where people can get their own sage and get their own
Yeah.
oracle cards and things like that?
Yeah. So, I honestly, when I was in my solo salon, it was just me, right? And I was working initially 7 days a week, and I was the only one doing treatments, and I was the one working the front, and I scheduled the appointments and all of these things. And so I was getting to a point where like less of my, and then of course then you have the social media piece, which is its own full-time job in itself. And I was just ready to expand because I wanted to be able to touch more people, train my estheticians the way that I was trained on Lyra, but I don't actually do the treatments that none of my treatments are in a Lyra protocol.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just learned like how this type of acne needs this and that needs that. And I was only one person, and there was just no way that, a new client would come in and I'm like, well, I can get you in 4 months. It's like, you can't, that's not sustainable, especially when
Yeah.
you're doing peels. Everything needs to be on a very strict regimen. And so, I was looking for a space for about 8 months. And when I finally found this space, I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect because of how the space was laid out. And my goal was just to touch more people and train somebody else to be able to create these types of transformations. And so, yeah, I mean, now I have this
You've
like
definitely
beautiful
done
space
that.
where people can come, and I have a whole retail front, and I'm able to sell things that I want to sell that I believe in, and yeah.
And I love how you're starting to plan more events at the end of
Yeah.
this year into the new year. Like I see kind of the wheels turning
Yeah.
and your business expanding even more. You're going to have your Jupiter return next year too. So just
Woo!
another layer of abundance coming to
Yeah.
you. Well, this has been such an amazing talk. I end all of the shows by pulling a card. So I'm going to pull, this is the first deck I ever bought. It's a big mama. It's called the
Okay, cool.
Lightworker Oracle. But I'm going to pull up your Instagram is already pulled up, but I'm going to leave up your Instagram. And while I'm shuffling, getting things ready, if you want to just tell people what the best way to connect with you is, what offerings you have coming up, and anything else you want them to know.
Yeah, awesome. Well, so Enlightened Beauty is located in downtown Sacramento. Best way to contact us is to head to Instagram. It's just at Enlightened Beauty with nothing else, just exactly how it's spelled. And you can DM us, you can text us, and all of the links are on Instagram. We also have a website, enlightenedbeautysacramento.com, where you can schedule yourself for treatments. If you are a new client, I would highly recommend coming in for a consultation, or one of our hydrofacials or enzymes are a great first treatment, and it doesn't require any prep.
And great
Yeah, we're
gifts
also
as well,
what's
right?
that?
Giving people like you can give gift cards and stuff too, because
Oh,
I
yeah, yeah,
know
yeah. We have
I
gift
got a
certificates.
hydrofacial for my friend and she loved it before her
Oh,
wedding.
good.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, exactly. We have gift certificates, and we have a ton of different skin treatments that we offer. We also do some facial waxing. On Thursday, December 30th at 6:30 p.m., I'm having a vision board circle. And so if you would like to come to that, just let us know and RSVP. It doesn't cost anything. We're just asking, that everyone RSVP so we know how much. I'm going to have some teas and things like that, and asking some people to bring some magazines to share. And then hopefully next year, I'm really focused on expanding the brand as far as like, apparel, other items for other estheticians and things for my clients to use at home, and just having some more events. So come on, Jupiter.
Yes, I really want to come to your vision boarding event. I'm going to try to make it. We're
Yeah.
heading out of town and we don't know exactly when we're coming back, but when you said Dr. Rhonda is going to be there, I'm like, I need to meet Dr. Rhonda.
Yes. Yeah, 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 for sure.
uh, okay, are you ready for your card?
I'm ready.
Okay, what message is coming through for Morgan? Ooh, seventh ray of ritual, order, and ceremony. So I'll pull this up in the book. It's number 44. By
Okay.
the way, before I start reading, these are really long descriptions, but it's my favorite and they're always on point. So I wanted
Yeah.
to pull it out for you because I know you love your oracle cards too.
Yes.
Ooh, and this is actually the last card in the deck. So
44.
that's
I
fun.
like it.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Seventh ray of ritual, order, and ceremony. When the gift of the seventh ray enters your life, something new is being formed, something that will benefit your world. There may be an increased interest in magic, ceremony, and ritual for healing purposes. Resonating with high frequency violet light and the archangel Zedekiel, the seventh ray also helps transmute energy from lower to higher frequency. It is a spiritual cleansing agent that allows the truth of spiritual freedom, empowerment, and choice to be seen and felt, restoring hope and joy to the heart. The seventh ray is very active upon the earth at this time. All of humanity is being affected by it. The seventh and the new life that wants to evolve from the old. It honors tradition and ancestral wisdom that serve new life. When the seventh ray enters your life, you are asked to balance your attachment to what has been with an openness to the new. It is a time to fearlessly question what has been, honor what continues to hold value for you, and dismiss what no longer serves you. The seventh ray also creates form from invisible, intangible spiritual energy. These are the inspired solutions and synchronicities that seem to come out of nowhere. They are signs of the divine order happening. The seventh ray brings an alignment with that divine order, and the more you are willing to invoke and allow that energy to bless you, the more your life will align itself with the genius of creativity, solutions, and loving opportunities the universe wants to bring into your world. The gifts of ritual, order, and ceremony are ways to attract this energy. Conscious ceremony done in service to unconditional divine love feeds a need for sacred embodiment. It is the hunger within the soul that many seek to feed through religion, and others through the less conscious rituals of addiction. Ritual can be something that keeps you stuck or opens you to the sacred. So
Beautiful.
I feel like this is like you were just planned basically a ceremony, this vision board circle.
Yeah.
This is like your invitation. Keep holding ceremonies, keep holding events. You're already,
Yeah.
raising the vibration just by being you. But I love that that came up.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And like one thing that I want to say too before we get off and just thinking about what you just said is being of service to others. When I did my last transfer, and before I had my son, a friend of mine, Colette, who was here doing some like readings here and there, she said, one thing, because once you do the implantation, there's 2 weeks and you don't know if you're pregnant or not. She was like, I think you should spend this time like giving back or doing something for the community. And so I did my transfer of like March 20 something of 2020, and then we had the shutdown. And so what I did is I sold, all of my Enlightened Beauty apparel and then donated 100% of everything to like a local church, Mercy on Jay. And I think like that is like such a powerful, like karmic, like if you can give back and do for others with the intention of it being pure, like that has to be the intention. You can't do it to get something in return, Right. But if you can do that in any aspect of your life, it will come back to you tenfold, so
Totally.
Pay it forward. So I love that card.
One of the girls I had on a couple weeks ago, Kristen, she is a manifestation expert, and she talked about that, and a lot of people who are, really into manifestation talk about being generous and giving back and putting out that good energy, of course, not expecting to get it back, but how magnetic that is when you are just in a place of service. And I feel like, it's such a testament to your business, to the information you put out, the services you give, and the intention you put into them, and just how much abundance comes back to you in the process. And I do have to tell you that you were actually the first person who introduced me to Gabby Bernstein, who has been huge on my journey.
Oh, honey, that's amazing. It's so funny because she had a live this morning as I was getting ready, and I clicked on it and I was like listening to her like talk about, her manifestation. She's doing like a 21 manifestation like thing in January. So she was very powerful in me manifesting my son and all of that too. So I'm so glad like that feels good for you,
Yes, and I feel like you and Gabby have like some really interesting parallels too. I'm sure you followed her story and followed her on social media. Yeah. I feel like you're like the Gabby Bernstein of Sacramento.
Oh my God. Oh my God, you're so cute. Hey, I'll take that title any day, honey, okay?
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on with me and chatting,
for asking
sharing your story. Yes, it's been such an honor for you to share your wisdom with us, and I'm so excited for what 2022 is going to bring for you and your business, and to keep connecting with you and learning from you. You have just been a light along my journey, and I'm so grateful for you showing up authentically and giving me permission to do the same.
Yeah. Thank you, honey. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and asking me. I am honored.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you for joining us and sharing your input throughout this live stream. If you missed any part of it, you can find it as a podcast. We'll be publishing it a little bit later tonight. And you can find other episodes of The Spiritual Journalist all the time on thespiritualjournalist.com or on my YouTube channel. We'll be back with more interviews next week, but until then, stay curious. Thank you so much for joining our discussion today. If you enjoyed this episode of The Spiritual Journalist, you can find more on thespiritualjournalist.com, or you can listen to our conversations wherever you enjoy podcasts. And if you want to learn more about astrology, join me live every weekday morning on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for Transits Today, where we break down the energy of the day based on the movement of the planets and start our morning off in a high vibe. All of the information we share on The Spiritual Journalist is completely free to you. So if you'd like to support more content like this, the easiest way to do so is to subscribe to our YouTube page. Head over to the Spiritual Shop on our website and buy yourself a little something. Or if you're feeling extra generous, you can buy me a coffee to fuel future live streams. Just tap the link in the description or head to buymeacoffee.com and search The Spiritual Journalist. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I can't wait for our next conversation.